And welcome to the Sharon Fitzmaurice podcast once again. And today, my guest is the wonderful Andrea Splendori. When I say it, I feel like I have an Italian accent, as I'm sure most people do, Andrea. Andrea, broadcaster, career and corporate well-being coach, head of partnerships with the Lust for Life, a tutor at Kingston College. And I know him as an artist, musician, and all-round amazing human being, and much more to that list of beautiful talents and gifts that you offer the world. Andrea, you're very welcome.
Thanks a million, Sharon. It's an absolute pleasure to be on this side of the microphone for once.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? I really think it's important too. As I was sitting here, people say, are you worried about when you're interviewing anybody? And I say, well, for me, it's not an interview, it's a chat, with people that I want to find out a little bit more about, because we have this public perception that we put out there, with all our labels and who we are. But I was thinking about and reflecting on, well, what is Andrea to me if I described him as a person? And lots of words and labels came, but I think of music, I think of artist, I think of mental health, I think of conversations, I think of listening, I think of reflecting, I think of swimming, I think of the outdoors, and much more. There was loads of things that I could describe you as a person or in your life, Andrea.
Yeah, it's fascinating actually listening back to what the way people may see me. And as you say, we have this public persona on social media or whatever it may be. And I'm not a great fan of social media, but I do use it, as we all do, for whether it's business or pleasure or whatever. And when you mention all of those things, yeah, I do all of those things, and the reason I do all those things because I really enjoy doing them. So I was talking to somebody recently, and they were just saying, "Well, what do you do? What's your job?" And I have different jobs. I do different things, and I remember thinking, if I were a well-known artist, I would be known as a multidisciplinary artist. but
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not a well-known artist. I'm just a regular Joe that does a lot of different things. But I do enjoy do all of the things, and it's part of the way I live my life, which is my mantra. It's the thing that I developed and created, which is my 1 hour holiday,
Mm.
where I take an hour holiday every day. And I've been doing that for years, and literally I take an hour every day to go on a holiday, um, and that can be playing a song, murdering a song, as I like
No.
to do. I like to murder songs that I love, and I decided the last while that I thought I might share them with the world and I stick them up on Instagram, but or I decided I was going to learn how to paint, I've been sketching for years. It's become part of me. It's been something that I do as part of my reflection, my mindfulness. So all of those things that I don't do, like I do, but I don't do it. If you know what I mean. I don't sit down somewhere and spend a bit of time reflecting, but I do sit down and sketch, and that could be while I'm waiting for an appointment, or while I'm waiting for the bus or the train or the plane or whatever it may be. And that has become part of me. And out of that, then I decided one day, so I might as well try painting. I'm nearly there. I got the first black line. So I decided to buy some acrylics. And the funny thing was that during the first lockdown, I ended up selling a few paintings because I was making these mad looking cows and
Donkeys.
donkeys and things. And it just means that what I like about it in the music is I don't believe in perfection. I never did. So and I remember when I was talking to you for my podcast, you were talking about dancing be your thing. I mean, are you a good dancer? Who cares? Who knows? Who am I to say whether you're a good dancer or not a good dancer? Who am I to say whether I'm good or bad at playing a song or doing a sketch? But what it means to me is more important than what other people may judge. So I kind of always have this thing that you might as well try something. If you really think you're passionate about it, might as well try it. And during my studies, I learned about this, like a passion, but I learned about how to find your own passion. And And it was through this tutor at the Kingstown College, Judith. She's a wonderful tutor, but she talked about envy. And when you're envious of something, don't discard it as something negative, but just look into it a little bit more and see why you're so envious. And I was always envious of radio DJs. I thought, what a wonderful job, you know. There they are, telling their stories, listening to other people's stories, playing a couple of tunes. I love to do that one day, you know. But I never did because, you know, how can you be a radio DJ or a broadcaster, et cetera, et cetera. And then thankfully the world opened up and we were able to do podcasts, and then that brought me to working radio, and now I'm doing all those things. But again, I'm doing it for the right reason. I'm doing it because I want to hear people's stories. I want to make sure that those stories are shared, like your story. And like I recorded an amazing episode this morning with a lady called Beatrice Caffrey, and she was talking about grief and how she lost her son, and it's just wonderful to hear, to give that space to somebody, to put it out there with absolutely no judgment, no agenda, and just listen, and just absolutely listen, and thankfully with the recording equipment, have it out there and for people to listen again and again. So yeah, that's all that journey that I started. I suppose it started when I was born, but in the last few years, it really has become part of me, the way I lead my life, and then, so it's good.
Well done, Andrea. I love that even listening to your voice, you have a beautiful tone to your voice, you know, that even if you were narrating somebody else's story, that you have, my ear automatically just goes up when you start speaking, and the same when you're singing. And I know you're saying you're murdering them, but you're not. You're playing a lot of songs, and I know you do that in your own podcast, and you ask people to, you know, name a few of their favorite songs over the years. So when I hear you singing and playing a song, it brings me back to a memory. And, you know, as I said, even last Sunday or whatever day, we were sitting out, myself and John, in the back in the sun. I was in the shade, of course, and you were playing, you know, Bright, Bright, Sunshiny Day. And that was a song that I had for my 21st. It just stood out for me. And I played it over and over again. So every time I hear it now, it just brings me back to a time when things weren't great, but that I started gaining a little bit of clarity about what I really wanted in my life for the first time. So that's why I said, even when you're sharing those songs, not murdering them at all, you're helping people also, you know. And that's one of the things that, even looking at you and reflecting on your own sketches that you've done, and as you speak about it now and you say, well, you know, I just tried it, and it's sharing it with people, you're almost giving people permission to try to be a little bit more creative.
Yeah, and that's what I want to do. That's what I've been doing. So pre-lockdown, for example, um, I'm in a band. You know, we put a band together when
Yeah.
we were. It was for a friend's 50th. He'd probably kill me now, but he's probably 56 or 57. I'm not sure. Anyway, for his 50th, we decided we were gonna. He said to me, "I would love to play Elvis on my 50th." And I said, "Sure, Elvis is only three chords. You might as well put a band together and play at
Yeah.
your 50th." So that's what we did, and that was a bit of fun. And then we said, "We might as well do it again. It's good fun." So
Yeah.
anyway, we call ourselves the Sax Pistols because we have a sax.
Oh,
But
very
what
good.
anyway, we played a few tunes, and we played a few gigs, and you know, whatever, some weddings and some 50th or whatever. But then I was like, okay, this is good fun, but I can do more with this. So I just before lockdown, I had organized two gigs, spaced out within 6 months, where we brought along a lot of teenagers from the town where I am in Greystones. So the idea was, come along. You know, we got I think it was 10 the first time and 11 the second time. They gave them the platform. So we said, look, we're going to play a couple of tunes. Then you come along, you do your bit, and then we go back on. And the second time around was fantastic. So we had all of these amazing, talented teenagers from 16 to 20 doing their thing, but we then played as a backup band for them. And the whole idea of that was, I said it before the gig and I said after the gig. I said, look, you're going to be much better than us. I can guarantee you that even before you start playing, because we're brutal. But the idea of this gig is that you need to see that you can do this. You don't need old fellas like me to organize it. And the most amazing thing was that we charged at the door, and we gave some money to charity the first time. The second time, we decided to pay the musicians. So every teenager that played got paid,
Very
and they couldn't
good.
believe it. And they were like, "But I said no. But this is the idea. That's if that's what you want to, if that's your passion, don't wait. Just go for it." And I'm hoping, and I know a couple of them are gone to to join the music college. So hopefully some of them will follow their passion. Some of them want and might be working in office and then play at the weekend. But I like to think that small small, as you say, giving permission to somebody to try things out is what I would have loved at times to have as a kid. And I'm sure I was given that as a point at some point. But I'm all for allowing people to express themselves whichever way that might be, and that we've gone too far down the the way the society is set up, that we feel, you know, you can't be an artist if you're the head of a company. But guess what? You can actually, you can be both, and you can dance in front of the camera if you want to. And and why not?
Yes.
Absolutely, why not? It's very cheerful. Yeah,
Yes.
watch the video and it's great.
Yeah,
So
and it's making people smile. But I love that fact when you're working with teenagers in particular, is, is not just giving them permission, but the encouragement, and that there is a reward, whether it be financial or it's just their own self-confidence and belief in themselves, which is hugely important, and about giving people an opportunity. So again, for me, it's like this is what podcasts are in a way. It's giving people an opportunity to tell their side of the story, or how they own their own life, their own imperfections, what got them to this point. And even you saying that, maybe you weren't giving all of those opportunities, maybe you were, you didn't take notice of it at the time, but then later on we find that place within our own lives, Andrea, I think, don't we, where we start feeling comfortable with who we are. As you said, we're not perfect. I don't know if there's ever going to be such a thing as perfection, but that we're comfortable being ourselves, whether it's silly or serious, that we can be both, that we can find a balance in life to have the joy and the deep and meaningful, and that we can bring them together. So that brings me back to Andrea at 21 and 22, when he decided, was that when you arrived in Ireland, that you were going to have this as your home, or you were just on an adventure? What brought you to the Irish shores?
I was 20, I think I was 22 or maybe 23. So a couple of weeks, last week, whatever was it, on the 7th of January, on the 7th of July, I should say, apologies. I've been 30 years in Ireland. So I must have been 23 then, because I'm
Yeah.
53 now.
Yeah.
What brought me there? It's funny because reflecting back, I grew up in Rome, just on the seaside of Rome, but I worked and studied in the city center, literally a stone throw away from the Colosseum. That's where my school was, which is fantastic from on one
Wow.
side. Yeah, it's fantastic because that's what we did. Came March, the sun was shining. We just stopped going to school and started to go to the Colosseum to see if there was any Swedish girls coming or whatever they were. I don't know, if the blonder the better. We just
Yeah.
spend days at the Colosseum waiting, perhaps to chat to somebody, and nothing ever happened. But it was a great sport, but that was wonderful and all the rest. But at the same time, over the years, I've been thinking back, why did I leave Italy when I did? Because I never really fitted there. I never really fitted with the rat race. I never really fitted with, you're up against 6 million people, whatever number of people are in Rome, and there's a constant. There's no real time to rest and reflect. And even as a young man, I had a great time. I had a great time as a teenager up to the day I left for Ireland, and I don't know if I ever slept over those 4 or 5 years. We were going full on, and it was great, absolutely fantastic. But it just seemed to be, don't know what it was, but it just didn't suit me. This idea of going from one job to another, making more money, try to survive the traffic jams, and try to survive everything is a queue and everything is bureaucratic. I was like, this is not for me. So I just thought it would be an idea to try something different. I was going out with a girl from Ireland that I had met in Spain, and I thought, sure, I might try.
Mm.
And I tried for a couple of months when I was 20 or something like that, or 21, and kind of liked the place, but really I didn't speak any English at all, so it was kind of really tough. And then I just decided, no, that's it. Now it's time has come. Crashed my car outside the Colosseum on the way to work. And when I say crash, I was in first gear, bumper to bumper, bumper to bumper,
Wow.
and I was listening to the Pogues, uh, which at full blast, and the song was Fiesta. I remember to this day, it was a great song, and I just didn't pay attention. I put in first gear, crashed into a car in front of me, and decided to walk over to the telephone box, which is right beside the Coliseum. At the time, was a telephone box, and I made two phone calls, and one was to my boss to say I'm leaving next Monday, and one was to the travel agent. Those things that used to be around, and say,
Yes.
can I have a one-way ticket to Dublin? And that was
Wow.
it. But I didn't tell my folks until about 2 days before I left.
Mm.
And 2 days before I left, I said, which looking back, I was like, wow, what did I do that for? I
Mm.
said, look, I'm moving to Ireland. See you. And they thought I'd be come back in after a couple of weeks, but that
Mm.
was 30 years ago.
Wow.
And I don't know. I think I was always for the quieter place. Actually, one of the first places I saw in Ireland that I fell in love with was the west of Ireland,
Mm.
and I just couldn't get enough of it. I couldn't believe that there was still a place in the world where you could breathe and think and
Mm.
take it easy. So I don't know. I think that looking back, and I'm still in touch with all my friends, and they're still fighting that race. They're still dealing with the bureaucracy. They're still dealing with all the nonsense that goes on in Italy. Uh, from politically, I don't even know anymore. I don't follow it anymore. But I'm
Mm.
sure politically, I'm sure they haven't improved that much since I left. And look, we have our scars over here. We have our issues over here, but
Mm.
it's definitely a little bit easier to make a life for yourself here. So I was quite happy to immerse myself in the Irish culture without a word of English. But I was quite happy to say, well, let's give it a good go here, and I did my best, and I kind of stuck around. One of the great things for me was I played football all my life, so I played football for a number of teams around Dublin, and that was a great way to become part of something really
Mm.
quickly.
Mm.
So I was the outsider, was the guy right after Italy beat Ireland in the World Cup. So
Oh.
I was nicknamed Skilashi for years after that.
Oh,
But
brilliant.
yeah, but it just meant that every game there was your 11 players plus the other 11, and very quickly built up uh, a lot of acquaintances, and it just be part of it, just trying to understand what Ireland was all about. And it wasn't easy without a language, but in a way, not having the language, it gets rid of a lot of barriers,
Mm-hmm.
because you just have to be who you are, and I couldn't be anything else. I couldn't make up anything, so I was who I was. And the few people that liked me, they liked me for who I was, with or without the language. So yeah, so I stuck around, and now I'm here and not going anywhere.
Wow. That's even for now, for young people nowadays, going anywhere in the world or just moving from one city to another city within their own country. Doesn't it say a lot, that you went with no language, you joined a team or a few teams, and you said, I just play football and I'll be myself. And if I'm accepted, I'm accepted. Imagine if we all had that belief.
I said this. I was on another podcast last year. They were asking me about one word that's important for me was integrity, and I always remember. And I said that to Simon at the time. I said, my dad was a simple man. He drove the train. He drove the local train from Rome to Ostia, which is the seaside of Rome, and that was his job. And one income family, four kids, normal life, worked hard. And he always said to us, be who you are, that, you know,
He
just
was
decide to
proud of
do,
it.
be proud of whoever you are. This whatever you decide to do, I'll support you. And he always remember stuck with me. He always said to us, "Look, you see that guy cleaning the streets. You know, at the time there's still the guy, who, with a brush. Make sure you respect him or
Mm,
her. You know,
mm,
that's he's doing a job. He's doing a job that needs to be done. And if you end up being that guy, great.
mm,
Do it with pride." And it always stuck with me because I thought, well, and that's really what made me who I am, because I really I genuinely don't care what Sharon Fitzmaurice does.
mm,
I care about who Sharon is, and that's all
mm,
it is. And you could be anybody,
mm,
and it really makes no difference to me. But it makes it really easy to be yourself, because then I don't have to make up. I don't have to be anybody. Of course, like in my teenage years, you're in a situation where you're trying to be somebody else because
yes. Well, you're not
just
sure who you are.
you're not sure you are. You have
Yes.
something in mind, but
Yes.
very quickly I was like, no, I don't believe in peer pressure. I don't believe in living beyond my means. So I have a very simple life. I have a wonderful family, and we live fairly simply. We don't. Yeah, of course we like a holiday, but
Mm,
do I care much about cars? Not really. Do I care? I don't care about a lot of those things, and I never really did. But it just makes my what is genuinely my passion. The more I do it, the more I think is possibly my mission in this life is to really connect with people, to really have those meaningful conversations,
mm,
whether they're for the podcast that I do, or the work that I do in the coaching, or whether it's simply having a conversation. Like I
mm.
normally, you know, I go out to buy milk and I'm only 5 minutes away from the shop, and it could take me an hour, you know. But it's good. I love it. I love it because I learn every day. I learn something, and I learn something. I'm hoping that's the person I'm interacting with may learn something from me, or maybe just
Mm,
have a small inspiration about something, and
mm,
and it is very simple. And I don't understand why a lot of people don't do it. I don't
mm,
understand why people get caught up in this pretending. And that's the idea of that's the little bit of the social media that scares me a bit,
mm,
that having to be somebody else online and having this constant pressure of showing yourself, whether
mm.
it's a photograph or what you put out.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary. But
No.
then again, that's me. It's not
But
the
again, I suppose for the younger generation, maybe that it's something that they've grown up with and they're all accustomed to it. We often smile about it, and we say they put up a picture online, and then if you saw them in real life, no one would recognize them. But unfortunately, at the moment, not sure if you've heard of Love Island. It's a program that's on. And we watched it the other night, and the young people are like airbrushed photographs that are on social media because they've all had work done and they're only in their very early 20s. And I was like, oh my God, but they have the most beautiful skin and eyes and lovely personalities and their vulnerabilities and all of those things that they don't appreciate right now because it's all about this and this, and how I look, and they had fillers and they had boob jobs and they had everything done. And I thought, okay, I'm judging them. And I thought, well, if that was around when I was in my 20s and very insecure, would that have been my world as well? And my husband laughed and kind of just went, thank God it wasn't.
yeah, yeah.
So I think it's where we grow up, who we surround ourselves with. Again, you talked about the encouragement, giving permission to people. And, we talk about this quite a lot in many of the podcasts, Andrea, and I'm sure you do this even with your clients and groups, is really it's the foundation of where and who we grew up with, that lends us to who we're going to be later on in life, even if it's like you as a young Italian man that came from a lovely background with a family that were encouraging and supportive of who you are, that you still weren't happy in that life in that particular area, and that you traveled abroad, as my mother would say in the years gone by, abroad, and came to Ireland with no language apart from your own that you grow up with, that you had courage. And I really love that about young people. I think they still have courage. I think they're kind of fearless in ways, even if they've all of this going on social media. They are kind of fearless. They will try anything.
Mm. But I think the important part for me is take it, my example. Okay, I left and I came here, but my siblings didn't go anywhere; they stayed
Mm,
there. So I mean, the nurture and nature, is always the
mm,
two. So like we were all brought up in the same way, and I just couldn't wait to get out of the house. I don't think I
yeah.
spent any time in the house. Even when I lived in Rome, I was out. I'm always out. I'm still always out. I need to be out.
Yeah. You're a wanderer.
I just need to be out and meet people and so.
Yes.
But I think what my quest in a way is that not all of us are fortunate enough to have that support at home. But I
Mm,
think as a human race, as a human being, we should be taking upon ourselves to create communities all of the time to
mm,
support the ones that don't have. So, and that only happens through a meaningful conversation. That only happens if I can, for whatever reason, I'm sitting having a coffee and happen to talk to somebody and spot something, understand something, given the
mm,
time, give the time and the space for that person to open up. And it does happen. It is simple. It is
mm,
simple asking the right question for the right reason.
mm,
And then guess what? Maybe that he or she, whether it's a teenager or is a grown up, maybe they need a bit of support and trying to
yeah.
find support locally. And I don't mean changing the world overnight, but
Mhm,
if we all did a little bit within our cul-de-sac or whatever it is, the
mm,
4 houses, the 10 houses, whatever it is, your community, I think we could all live in a much better place. And that's really what I believe. And that's what I'm trying to do. When I say I'm trying to do, that's what I'm doing. And if it happens, it
mm,
happens. I don't believe in changes. The changes will happen for the right reason. And if the space is there, and I always say, if you create the right environment, I talk about my working life as a garden. So I have my little garden. It's a very small garden,
mhm.
but I've been plowing it away for years, and it's
Yeah.
quite fertile at the moment. And I
Mm,
planted a lot of different things, and some of the business is growing well, and some of the business is growing bad, and some of the
mm.
I sometimes end up with too many spuds. Sometimes end up
The
with too
weeds.
much too much weeds. So you get rid of some of the weeds, you get rid of some of the salads, and restart again. But that is the reality. The reality is it's an ecosystem. What is your life, your work life, your personal life? It's an ecosystem, and we
Mm,
shouldn't shy away from the weeds. The weeds are there for a reason.
mm,
And sometimes, guess what? There's a beautiful flower coming out of the weeds.
mm,
And that beautiful flower could turn into something else. If you just rip that weed before you give it a chance
mm.
to to come out, it could be, yeah, we could be giving, we need to give people a chance. That's really what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And that chance for me, it starts from that simple conversation. And
Mm,
how you feeling, how you're really feeling, tell me a bit more about it. And that's really the start of something.
mm. And I think
And
that's so important, the conversation and asking the question. But one of the things that I value in you as a, broadcaster, podcaster, all those lovely terms, is your listening skills. And I would always say for myself and for a lot of people that I've connected with is that it is a listening. I'm listening sometimes when there are no words. I'm listening sometimes when it's something like that they painted or a song, and it's listening to the way they sing it. And I said, we don't stop to listen enough. It's, I'm obviously teaching mindfulness all the time. And I said, just go and sit in your backyard, sit on your balcony, sit at your window and just listen for 5 or 10 minutes every single day. And the song that the earth gives back to you every day is so beautiful. It doesn't have to be a person with a melodic voice or a beautiful musician. The birds, and myself and my husband often take walks down the back of our garden, and there's a thrush that sings this most amazing song. And then we have crows that fight, and we know them all now at this stage because we've learned to listen to them and identify them the same way you would at listening to the people who are in your circle and what they need and what's going on for them at the time. And also that sometimes you can be there and you can be asking all the questions and they've heard you, but they don't have to answer you, but they know you're there. And just listening and saying, well, when you're ready, I'm here. And
yeah,
that's what a conversation is. That's what communication is. That's what opening a conversation is. I think it's like you, Andrea, it's just giving your heart and saying, I'm here.
yeah,
Can I help you today? And
yeah.
that's it.
And sometimes I use this to when we do the workshops with corporate and or individual. I use this example of sometimes you meet. I always like to make the example of the beekeepers, because the
Yeah.
beekeepers are wonderful, but they can go on. They could talk about bees until the cows come home. But sometimes if you keep listening, and eventually maybe the question comes out and say, what are you really? Why are you really trying to say here? What
Yeah.
else is going on there? I mean,
Yeah.
is that? And I'm not talking about the beekeepers, but
Yes.
sometimes we talking about something that is it's just discovered that we don't know
Mm.
what to say. We want to say something, we don't know what to say, so we talk about bees. We talk about
Mm.
I don't know whatever else that
Yeah.
it can come across quite boring. But
Yes.
if you really listen, if you're genuinely listening, then you'll find there's a wonderful world behind it. All of us
Mm.
have these wonderful stories, and
Yeah.
those stories are not necessarily they don't have to be extraordinary. They can be as simple as and as I keep saying, I say it to myself every morning. I know absolutely nothing, and it's a great way to start the day
Yes.
because it's just a blank canvas. You'll
You're
find some.
reminding me there, Andrea. I always say that, you just made me laugh again out loud. I used to always say I wake up like Manuel from Faulty Towers and go, I know nothing.
That's it. That's it.
And a guy from Chris Delaney that I interviewed there a few weeks ago, he said that like that Faulty Towers, what's his name, John Cleese, brought that show, to whatever television series, and no, they didn't want it and it was useless. And now it's one of the top TV series for the last how many years since it was
Mm.
broadcast on whatever channel. So he brought his idea, like all people, and he wasn't encouraged, but he was creative in his ideas. But somebody listened and somebody saw that there was talent there. And weren't they the lucky people that listened and said,
Yeah.
maybe I'll give it a go and see what happens? And here it is years later, still being shown all over the world on TV screens.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is, it's just, yeah, I think it's simple. And I think the more we all give it a bit more time, and we have loads of time. We
Yes.
have loads of time. All we need to do is put down that phone
Mm,
a few times a day, and then you'll
yeah.
find them. We went on a holiday a couple of weeks ago, and we cycled the Royal Canal.
Yes.
Um, Myself and my wife Sylvia, and we cycled that because we're going to do a run in September for a Lost for Life. We're going to run the Royal Canal from Greystone. So it's about 210 kilometers over 3 days. But that alone, that again, the reason we set up that thing last year, we did a few times, but last year was the first one. This is the second one we're doing. And there's 26 people doing it. But why are we doing it? It's not, the running is just part of it. It's just an
Mm,
idea. It's just something. But we're doing it because when we did last year, it was incredible social experiment. And what happened was everybody on that run became so close, and we were able
mm,
to share some stories, stories that you wouldn't share with everybody every day. To the
mm,
point where one of the young guys that was running with us last year left a lovely message to us all yesterday on that we have this WhatsApp group to say, unfortunately, you won't be able to do it
oh,
this year. But the beauty was he really opened up on the reasons why he couldn't do it. Um, and it was fascinating. And that's I left him a message to say, by the way, that's the exact reason why we do the Mindful West Run, because
mm,
it's about feeling comfortable, about sharing that vulnerability, those
mm,
issues. So he was happy enough to spend 3 minutes in front of the camera to leave a really heartfelt message to
mm,
everybody to say, guys, I won't make it this year. So I think all of those things, and again, it's going back to the very beginning of this conversation and the imperfection. It's not an or it's a run from here from Greystones to Termonbarry. Anybody can do things like that. Anybody can do
mm,
1K, 2K. It doesn't have to run. You don't have to run. You
mm,
can sit on the bench. It doesn't matter where you are. Sit on the
mm,
bench in your estate and create something with two, three, five, 10 people.
mm,
Create something, whatever that something is,
mm,
and you'll discover this amazing world of amazing people. We have such a homogenous, I should say, um, not homogenous, a varied group of people.
yes,
So men, women, young and old,
yes,
and it's just wonderful. And everybody is there's a common denominator there, which is the conversation,
And
and it's
just
wonderful.
running or walking beside somebody, and sometimes not having anything to say, and it's okay as well, and just being present with each other. And I think that was something I remember you were doing a conversation with Brezzy as well around mental health awareness and
Mm,
speaking about that, and for me, that's what mental health awareness is, that if I'm sitting somewhere, and I always try and keep it very simple for people and say, if I'm sitting somewhere and in public and I'm nervous about meeting somebody I know or somebody I don't know, then there must be some issue with me. But it's not to make it a huge issue, that it's anxiety or it's a little bit of nervousness or I don't feel secure in myself. It might be that moment or it might be always. But are other people aware of it? And that's why I said we have to notice, just as you said, our community, the people around us, the person walking to the shop, taking a few minutes. Like you, I'm constantly out and I'm walking and I'm saying hello, not just to the people, but to the animals as well, the cows and the sheep and everybody in between. And I notice things and I stop talking to people and they often look at me strangely and say, aren't you great to stop and talk? And I go, am I? But am I great to stop and talk? Does everyone not stop and talk? And unfortunately, they don't these days. They've
mm,
stopped, and I thought that with lockdown, it might have taught us a valuable lesson that we were all running so fast. We were all caught up, as you call it, the rat race, caught up in traffic, caught up with our to do list, caught up with social media. And everyone stopped and turned to nature once again. And that was so beautiful to see for me in particular. But when I caught up with the people on my road and on my loop walk around, there were people that I hadn't seen for a long time. And I thought, well, what is this teaching me? You know, and I used to always think about that. That's what I would reflect on. What does that conversation, because I believe everyone is a messenger for you. You're learning from them and asking them how they are is great, but just asking them, is there anything in that moment that they need from you? And whatever way you word it, it doesn't have to be, do you need anything from me now? It might be just, can I get you anything on the shop? I'm going that way. And the amount of them people have said, you're the first person that spoke to me in a week.
yeah.
That's hard, isn't it?
It is, and I think I was this like you. I was hoping that the slowing down of the pandemic
Mm,
perhaps assured us some more humanity, and I think it is in a way.
mm,
People are getting out of more, but I don't know what the answer is. I think even there's a cultural thing as well. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but us
mm.
Irish, and I include myself in that for a
Yes,
moment. We like to talk about the superficial a lot. We're great at that. We're really good at talking about.
the
We can
weather.
talk the weather forever and ever, but you know, sometimes when we need to go a little bit deeper, it can be difficult. But as I always say, if you start from you, if you're the one sharing, if you're the one sharing the story, then you're definitely giving somebody the possibility and the permission to
Mm,
share if they want. They don't
mm,
have to. But
mm,
guess what? They might go home and go,
mm.
"Isn't that's Sharon? She never knew." Like another example I used during the work that I do is, you watch any of these movies, or the series on Netflix with the guy, the policeman gets shot, and then there's the next scene. It's always the same scene. The guy says, "Oh, I worked with John for
Mhm.
10 years. I never knew him. I never knew he
Mhm.
was into golf or whatever."
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We just don't know. We know a little bit, enough to have that weather conversation, but we don't know enough about each other, and we should.
Mm,
I think we should. We
mm,
should. We should really kind of give ourselves the time, like, and that's what I love about doing podcasts and listening to podcasts, because it's that hour where you just, or half an hour, whatever it is,
mm,
where you just switch off from everything else, switch
mm.
off from the distractions, and really tell it like it is, and
Yeah.
just let it out. And then we can do that. It doesn't have to be a podcast. It can be a
No.
coffee with somebody, it can
Mm,
be a walk. And as I say to somebody else as well, I said, just knock next door, just go next door today and knock on the door and say, you fancy a coffee? Do you fancy a
yeah.
walk? Do you fancy
Yeah.
sitting in the front garden or whatever it is? And
Yeah.
who knows? It
And I
might be the
think, yeah.
best thing.
I think you're so right, and it's the simple things, as I said, Andre. It's always coming back to me for the simple things, because we complicate everything in life and it really doesn't have to be. And with your Mindful West run, I think again that was one of the things I admired about you is You know, you're doing this anyway, and you're with these lovely group of people, and then you decide to do it for a Lust for a Life, which I've written for as well, and they're an amazing organization, and they're the whole time creating, but they can't do that without the help of people like you, you know. And that's what I mean, you're not just doing this for your business, you're doing this, our community is this country, it's the world, that's our community, you know. It's
Yeah,
not just our little small space of where we live in. So we're bringing in, and that's what social media, again, I see the plus side of it, it's opened it up and it's brought our community kind of in, it's made it wider and it's brought it closer through social media. And a Lust for Life are doing that, and you are helping them do that. So when I think of you, I associate you with a Lust for Life.
that's interesting because I was being a friend of a Lust for Life for a number of years simply because I just like the people in it, and then recently they asked me to help out with some fundraising and partnership. And then we did this run last year, which we did it both for Lust for Life in Crumlin, and we raised 45,000, which was a phenomenal amount of money.
Amazing.
But the beauty of all of that was not only the people involved, not only the generosity of the individuals, but the companies that got involved. So there were a few companies like Cisco, Microsoft, Dell, they just got involved and they gave us money, which was great. And they started to talk about the run, which was part of the mental health. So this year, it's okay, we'll do it again. So what we add in this year, and the reason I'm saying this is because again, it's not about these 25 people running 210 kilometers. It's about anybody who wants to get involved at any level, anywhere, whatever. And so we decided to do it again. But so Brezi came up with this idea. He now lives near me, and we go running quite a bit together. And come up with this idea as a local artist that does this beautiful wire sculptures. So we commissioned a sculpture from him. It's only about 3 feet high and a couple of feet on the pedestal. And there's this lady holding a bowl over her head, like a rock or a bowl. Because last year when we did the run, each one of us carried a stone from the beach here, and we threw it in the ocean in Galway, in Salthill. And the idea was, look, we always say we run for those who can't. You know, unfortunately, some people can't run, and we'd like to do it for them. And the idea of the stone was, you know, symbolizing the fact, you know, we all carry something, we all carry a bit of weight. So this year we decided to bring this statue across the country, and we're donating it to Termonbarry as a town, simply because that's where we're going to finish. It's the end of the canal. I know the end of the canal is Splendori, but we're going to go across the Shannon and stop in Termonbarry, and we're going to put this statue. Hopefully, it'll be installed beside a bench on the Shannon where people go and sit down and look at the water flowing. And again, to just give a little reminder that, you know, we're all made of the same thing. We're all just human beings trying to do our best. 99% of us get up in the morning to do the right thing. There's a handful of us that don't, but most of us want to do the right thing. And then sometimes life throws a curveball at us. But and so what we want to create is something that help people to talk about it, to get over that stigma, to get over that idea of I can talk about the weather with Sharon, so I don't have to talk about my mental health. No, talk about your mental health if you can, or if you can't, you know, try to express yourself in a way that it helps you. That said, the reason we're doing this is because with the Lust for Life that we're creating this one program is a schools program, which is fantastic. It's been rolled out to thousands of children already this year. And we're hoping to go into all the schools. This is for primary schools, 5th and 6th class. And it's to create, to give the kids the tools to deal with anything from bullying to social media, peer pressure, to mindfulness. There's mindfulness courses in it, etc. And the next step to that is a program we're launching this year. The pilot is called Gone Past Talking, and it's for teenagers. So where we're bringing teenagers through a series of workshops to teach them leadership skills and life skills to develop whatever they want to develop, whether it's a garden in their local community, to change the law on marriage, to whatever they want to do. These are the future. These are the people that will make the difference. Not me or Brezi, or we're all past the talking.
Still talking.
But they so that's what we do. And obviously all of these things, needs some money, so we're doing fundraising for that and for other things. But what I'm part of what I'm doing with them, and I'm trying to raise funds in partnership. But really, I'm really keen to partner with companies that understand what we're doing and how we're doing it. So
Mm.
the companies that are talking to me at the moment are interested in that idea, and are interested in the fact that we're also creating a resource for parenting at the moment, because we
Mm.
say, okay, look, one thing is the kids, the teenager, but and the mental health charities, etc., etc. But what about the parents? The parents needs as much support as the
Yeah.
kids. So we're trying to create that three prong, and that's the bit where I'm putting a bit of effort at the moment to try to partner with companies to say, okay, look, we can provide you with a lot of content. We can provide you with webinars,
Mm.
talks, etc., to help your parents.
Yeah.
At the same time, perhaps we're doing it a bit like the Patreon of charities. So you can
Yes.
pay your €5 a month, and you have access to this exclusive content. And that seems to be kind of well received at the moment. We're in talks with 2 or 3 companies that are very keen to be part of it. And we just, again, we're hoping that that approach that is within the small nucleus, whether it's the familiar nucleus, the company. So if I'm talking to a large company that has 1,000 employees in Ireland, and they start to get that, yeah, it's okay to talk about my son, my
Mm.
daughters. It's okay to talk with my son and my daughter. That would be the ripple effect that we want. We don't. There's no band-aid. The band-aid is too late. The moment you put a band-aid on something, it's a bit late. So we want to make sure there's no need for band-aids, really. So that's what we're trying to do. And what I loved about it, because I never liked charities. That's what I
Mm.
say to Paula when I join. I say, I don't like charities, but they're more of a movement. They're more of
Yes.
it, and they're really kind of, they like rattling the cage, which is nice because
Yeah.
there's a bit of activism there. So yeah, so we're doing it quite a bit, and I'm hoping that some of these things are going to come to fruition, because they are making a big difference. Like the feedback we're getting from the schools, from the teachers,
Mm.
is phenomenal, because they're saying we didn't have the tools to deal with this. We don't, and the studies have shown that it's important that the intervention at that level comes from a familiar face. So,
Yeah.
in this case, the teachers. There's no point to bring Andrea, to bring Brezi, to bring Sharon to do. And
Mm.
we talked about this when you were on
Mm.
my podcast. You go in, you do your 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
Yeah.
6 weeks program, and then you're gone. And
Yes.
then
They
what,
need
what,
it.
what happened?
Yes, that's it. They need that familiar face. The teachers, the parents, the local Froga leader,
Yeah,
the football coach. To me, that's
yeah,
the community,
yeah,
but they don't always have the skills. So I think that
yeah,
is absolutely phenomenal, Andrea.
yeah.
Wow. Amazing. How do you feel? And one thing just flashed into my head there is, how do you feel now as the 53-year-old Andrea, as opposed to the young Andrea that came to Ireland, not knowing the language? What would you say to him now if he was sitting beside you?
What I would say to him, what I would say to him, I would say, yeah, keep grinding, keep
Mm.
crafting, just
Yeah.
keep doing what you're doing. And that's what I'm trying to say to my kids, because
Yes.
I enjoyed the hardship. And when I say hardship, I worked on a building site, and
Mm.
building site in Ireland in the middle of January is one of the worst. It's one of the worst places you can want. But and it was horrendous. And then I went to wash dishes, and then I went back to a building site. Then I went to wash dishes again, and I did all of those things. And when I
Mm.
say hardship, I don't mean it like it, but it was hard
It was
work.
hard work, yeah.
It was hard work, but it was just the best way to get on, the best way
Mm.
to really be part of something, and walking out of there knackered with a few
Mm.
quid in your pocket, and say, okay, well, now what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
So what I would say really just do what you need to do, keep your head
Mm.
held up high, and keep doing it. Things, not the things. I'm a great believer that things, they were always improved. They're always improved
Mm.
because you can visualize where you want to be, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is. And sometimes, you're visualizing where you want to be, and then you need to do a bit of reality check, and say, like in my all of my life, I think I went to bed thinking, as a teenager, thinking, like I would prep myself to dream, and my dream was always to play in front of a big crowd, play
Wow.
music. That was my
Yes.
dream. So I
Yes.
would do my best to dream it. And I think I played with everybody. I was, I was the lead singer with
Yes.
every single band I could think of, and the lead guitarist and the lead drummer. I
Yes.
think it was everything.
Yeah.
And then guess what? At 45 years of age, whatever it was, there I was in front of 150 people. It wasn't
Yeah.
thousands, but there it was. It was my gig. And,
Yeah.
and it looked just like my dream, it was pretty much the
Oh,
same.
isn't that lovely?
And it was great. And so sometimes you need to kind of do a bit of reality check and going, yeah, am I going to play at Electric Pick? Probably not. But you can
Yeah.
play in your local,
Yeah.
and do it for a charity, and do it for
Yeah.
fun, and do it with a purpose. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, the loop closes. So I
Mm.
don't know. I'd be quite happy to tell myself, look, just keep going,
Yeah.
just keep your head held up. Enjoy yourself, have a ball. Just there's
Mm.
plenty of time to be worrying about mortgages and
Yeah.
kids and cars. There's a time to enjoy yourself, and there's a
Mm.
time to keep your head straight. And the two of them don't have to be. I'm still a kid at heart. I'll be
I think we
really.
all are.
Yeah, I have a great group of friends, and we're still just laughing like we were 20 years old, and it's
Isn't that
great. And
right?
that's what keeps me going. It keeps
Yeah.
having that group of friends that I can just pick a phone now and make one phone call, and I know I'll have somebody at the door
Mm.
give me a hand if I need for whatever that is. So,
That's
and
so
that's
important.
it's important, but it's a simple thing to do. Again, you need to work hard at this type of relationship, and it's always the same. The more you give, the more
Mm.
you're banking things, and it's not give and take. It's just it's there. There's a going back to the garden. There's a garden. We all want something out of it. We all want to
Mm.
reap the benefit of that relationship. But sometimes you just keep putting it in, and that's all it is. That's all you're good for, and you don't need anything out of it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And then one day it comes, and you might want that spot, and you might
Yeah.
ask for it.
And if your younger self was to look at the Andrea now at 53, what would he say and think, I wonder, looking at all that you have achieved, the man that you've grown into, your beautiful wife and kids, the passion you have for what you're doing, the voice, the talents that you have now, the gifts you've acquired along the way, the friendships, the achievements, the learning, the accolades, because sometimes we don't really look at everything that we have achieved in our lives. But if you look back as you've done and said, keep working, keep grinding, and you've done that. And now that younger version is looking at you now, Andrea. Wow.
What would he say? He'd
Yeah,
probably say, "Wow, I can't believe you got that far."
there you go.
Probably say, "Yeah, I never thought you'd be still getting out of running at this stage, or you
Yeah,
still be having a laugh and going away with the lads for the
yeah,
weekend, and doing all the things that you always wanted to do."
yeah,
And an interesting, I always look up to a lot of people, just anybody that I feel, and I have a great uncle of mine. He's quite old now. He's 87 or something, but he's a great athlete, and he always was a great athlete. But he always said to me, I said, "So what's the trick here? How you're 84 and you're still running 5 kilometers a day. Well,
yeah, yeah.
what's the formula?"
What's the secret?
And he said to me, he says, "Hang out with younger people." He said, the
Wow,
older
really?
he said, the older you get, find your friends, because they become a real pain in the ass.
Oh, that is brilliant. That is brilliant.
So I always like my friends, because I'm the oldest by a
Yeah.
couple of months, and by a couple of years. I always say, look, soon enough I'm gonna have to find new ones, because you're gonna be
Maybe
old.
out of
And
codgers.
no, but
Very good.
it's yeah, no, it is that. It's just keeping it really,
Mm.
the slagging it goes on, the laughing it goes on. It's so important. I just can't wait in the morning to get out and have a run and a swim and a coffee with my friends, because nobody gets away with anything,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's just
They
great
keep
fun.
you real. They keep you
Yeah,
real.
and by the
Yeah.
time you get to your desk for 9 o'clock, you've already been slagged, you already had a swim, had a run,
Yeah.
and a nice coffee, and yeah, and it's that simple. It is that simple. Most of that stuff is free.
Absolutely, Andrea. It has been a pleasure. As I said, there's loads of things I had written that I wanted to ask you, but that's why I just let the conversation flow because you're so easy to listen to. You have so much to share with everybody, and I know that anyone that hears you on this podcast will absolutely go and follow you on Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever you are on social media and keep up to date with your latest music choices and your latest creative paintings and also what you're doing in the world of our community to help young people. And I know that you even were in the Whale Theatre. Is that coming up? And that's been sold out, a podcast live. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's the Social Fabric podcast live. That's
Yeah.
another thing that I started doing last year, just before the lockdown, and it's been fantastic. And so again, it's amazing when you get to, maybe it's an age thing, but it's not an ego thing. I really don't. It's not my gig. I'm there. I'm the conduit for what's
Mm,
going to happen. And it was beautiful the first few that we did because there were people that have been longtime listeners of the podcast that came along, and
mm,
face listeners I never met. They came up to
yeah.
say, I've been listening, and my favorite episode is that or whatever. And now all of a sudden we're passing this, hopefully passing this pandemic thing. So what I'm trying to do with the next one, which is on the 2nd of September, is to it's always done in a kind of chat show type of way. There's three or
Yeah.
four guests on stage with me, and I always use the platform to promote other artists. So the first
Mm,
couple of ones I did, I used music. I asked the artists if I could use their music, Susan O'Neill and who else I used? Mark. Oh, I forget the name. I'm
mm,
sorry, Susan O'Neill. Anyway, I asked them could I use their music. I used their music and kind of promoting them. But now this time we're actually going to have a couple of people talking about this year. We're probably going to talk about the run. We're going to talk about what mental health is about
mm,
and the power or the lack of sporting facilities, etc., etc. But at the same time, I'm going to have an artist, and yet to be confirmed, on stage with us to talk about all of that, but also give us a few tunes in
mm.
between. So Susan O'Neill's going to be on the next one, which is going to be possibly in October. She couldn't make it this one year, so I'm just looking at a couple other people now that can make it. And again, it's just it's interactive, so we chat away, and then we'll let the audience ask questions. And so we did the first one was about um I called it is Cis Women the New
Mm.
Kale,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also about and then we did another one about gurus. Do we really need another guru?
Yeah.
And so this one I think is going to be called Are We There Yet?
Oh, I
Because it's a
love
long.
that. Yeah, I love that.
So yeah, it's something I absolutely love doing, and so hopefully I'll have a few gigs this year if
Mm,
everything goes back to normal.
I
But
hope so. And how lovely to be able to see people face to face too, isn't it? And
yeah,
meet people that you've never met before, but again, feel like they know you from listening to you. Andrea, thank you so much for giving us your time today. I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful.
thanks a million, Sharon. Thanks a million for the opportunity, and best of luck with a wonderful podcast.
Thank you so much. So you can check out Andrea, www.andreasplendori.com, and find out more about his beautiful work, his radio broadcasting, his podcast, his coaching, and all the wonderful things that he does that we couldn't even list. It would take the hour with all his skills and talents. So thank you again for listening. Stay well, and I look forward to chatting to you all soon.